At Gate 7 of Chicago O'Hare International Airport, the hustle and buzz of travelers filled the air. Among them sat a woman in her late 50s, Margaret Whitmore, dressed in pearls, pressed slacks, and a blazer that screamed, "Old Money." She was sipping a cappuccino, checking her watch every 2 minutes, waiting to board her first-class seat to New York. Flying first class was a matter of pride for Margaret. She liked the quiet, the exclusivity, the separation from what she often referred to as the chaos of coach. So when boarding was finally announced, she moved quickly, flashing her platinum ticket like a badge of honor. Margaret reached her row 1A, window seat. But as she approached, her eyes narrowed. A tall black man, in his late 30s, dressed in a sharp charcoal suit, was already seated in 1B, the aisle seat beside hers. He was calm, focused, and reading something on his tablet. Margaret paused. He didn't look nervous. He didn't look like he was lost. He looked comfortable. Too comfortable, in her mind. She cleared her throat and placed her designer bag in the overhead bin, then sat down stiffly. The man looked up briefly, gave a polite nod, and returned to his reading. Margaret wasn't satisfied. Something about him made her uneasy. She glanced around to see if any flight attendants noticed. None did. After a few minutes, she leaned slightly toward him. "Excuse me," she said, her voice carefully polite. "Are you sure you're in the right seat?" The man didn't even glance up. "Yes," he replied simply. Just one word. No apology. No explanation. Margaret blinked. "Oh, okay then," she mumbled, her smile tight and forced. But her mind was spinning. Maybe he had snuck up here. Maybe it was a mistake. She pressed the flight attendant call button. A few seconds later, a young flight attendant named Nicole arrived, cheerful and professional. "Is everything all right, ma'am?" "I think so," Margaret replied with a small chuckle. "It's just, I'm not sure this gentleman is in the right seat." Nicole smiled and pulled out her device to check the seating chart. "Let's see. Seat 1B, Mr. Eric Reynolds. Yes, he's in the correct seat." Margaret's smile faded. "Oh, huh, okay. I just thought, never mind." Nicole nodded and moved on. But Margaret wasn't done. Her fingers tapped on her knee. Her mind raced. She had been flying first class for decades, and never once had she seen someone like him sitting beside her. She decided to try again. Another press of the call button. Nicole returned, still smiling, but slightly less patient. "I'd like to switch seats," Margaret said quietly. "I don't feel comfortable here." Nicole tilted her head. "Is there something wrong with the seat?" "No," Margaret replied, glancing at Eric. "Just a personal comfort issue." Nicole hesitated, then said gently, "Let me check for any available seats." Margaret smiled to herself. Finally, something would be done. But when Nicole returned a moment later, her expression was apologetic. "I'm sorry, ma'am. First class is fully booked. I can check in coach if you'd like." Margaret's smile vanished. "Coach?" she echoed. "No, Never mind, Eric hadn't said a word the entire time. He remained calm, composed, and quiet. Margaret, on the other hand, sat rigid, glaring at the seatbelt sign as if it personally offended her. She could feel eyes on her. One or two passengers were definitely listening. But she didn't care. She felt something was off, and she was determined to get it handled. As the plane finished boarding and the door closed, Margaret leaned toward Nicole again. "I need to speak to someone in charge." The head attendant, or the captain. Nicole's brows raised slightly. "Is there an emergency?" "No," Margaret replied quickly, "but I don't feel safe." The words were chosen carefully, deliberately. Nicole stiffened. "I'm sorry? I just I don't feel safe sitting next to this man. A hush settled over the nearby rows. A businessman 2 rows back leaned forward slightly, pretending not to listen, but clearly listening. Eric closed his tablet and looked at her. His expression didn't change. Calm, still. Nicole cleared her throat. Are you saying this man is making threats or behaving suspiciously? Margaret hesitated. No, but I don't know who he is, and I've seen stories. I don't feel comfortable. Nicole's tone shifted, firmer now. Ma'am, discomfort is not the same as danger. Mr. Reynolds has done nothing wrong and is in his assigned seat. Margaret pursed her lips. So, you're not going to do anything? I've offered to find you another seat, Nicole replied. But asking another passenger to move without cause is against policy. Margaret flushed with anger. Her tone rose. I'm not the one who should move. Eric remained silent, though his eyes never left her. His stare wasn't angry. It was measured, like a scientist observing something under a microscope. Nicole exhaled. If there is no security threat, then I kindly ask you to remain calm and seated as we prepare for takeoff. Margaret's heart pounded. This wasn't going her way. Not at all. She thought she had control. That one complaint would be enough. But no one was listening the way they usually did. She pressed the call button again. Nicole returned, less friendly now. Yes, ma'am? I want to file a report, Margaret said. I want him removed. This is about safety. Eric tilted his head slowly, then reached into the inner pocket of his jacket. Margaret's eyes widened slightly. She held her breath. From his coat, he pulled out a small leather case and flipped it open. A shiny gold badge gleamed under the overhead lights. Special Agent Eric Reynolds, he said evenly. FBI. Would you like to continue your report? The cabin froze. Nicole's mouth opened slightly in shock. Passengers began whispering. Margaret couldn't speak. The badge, the title, the calm. It shattered every illusion she had. And now, everyone was watching her. Margaret's world was collapsing. Her plan, her little power play, had just backfired in the most public, humiliating way. Eric's badge was still out, still gleaming under the lights. He wasn't gloating. He wasn't angry. He was just unshaken. Nicole stepped back slowly, eyes wide. I wasn't aware you were federal, sir. Eric nodded once. Didn't see the need to mention it. Until now, he turned his eyes back to Margaret. You said you don't feel safe sitting next to me. Would you like to file that complaint with the Bureau? Margaret could barely breathe. Her lips moved, but no words came out. The businessman across the aisle let out a low whistle. Man, that's karma in real time. A few soft chuckles followed. Then, a phone lifted. Someone was recording. Margaret turned away, too late. The damage was done. The video of her trying to have a black man removed from first class, then freezing when he revealed his FBI badge, was now digital history. Nicole excused herself quickly, clearly shaken. Margaret felt hot, flushed, panicked. Her hands trembled as she reached for her phone. She needed to get ahead of this, issue a statement, control the narrative. But when she opened Twitter, her name was already trending. The video? Already uploaded. Caption: Racist lady tries to remove black man from first class. He's FBI, the view count? Climbing by the second. She scrolled down. Entitled much. Karma came wearing a suit and a badge. She picked the wrong one today. She turned off her phone. The noise was too loud, and it had just started. When the plane landed in New York, Margaret avoided eye contact with everyone. She stayed in her seat, waiting for the others to leave first. But the whispers followed her. At the gate, cameras waited. News crews, news crews. Reporters held microphones. Cameramen filmed. People snapped photos. Margaret froze. One reporter spoke into her microphone. "The woman from the viral plane video has just landed. We're trying to confirm her identity." Now Margaret turned, covering her face with a scarf, and rushed for the exit. She jumped into the first taxi she could find and barked, "Just drive!" But it didn't matter. Her phone buzzed endlessly. Text after text. Calls from people she hadn't heard from in years. Even her own son texted her, "Mom, what did you do?" By the time she got home, the video had over 2 million views, and that was just Twitter. Her inbox was full. So was her voicemail, sponsors and foundations she worked with, backing away. One email said it plainly: "We must distance ourselves from this controversy." But the final blow came that evening. A call from her employer, the board of trustees. A voice she recognized said coldly, "You're no longer a fit representative for our organization." She begged, tried to explain, tried to say it wasn't what it looked like, but no one cared, because now it was exactly what it looked like. And, meanwhile, Agent Eric Reynolds, he had already moved on. Another flight, another mission, another day protecting the country. For him, it was Tuesday. For her, it was the day everything fell apart.